What's up, YouTube? Don't mind the bad hair day. For whatever reason, it's created this funky little loop thing going on here. So I'm just kind of dealing with that while we're recording videos. So this is I posted a league yesterday from the live stream, the first league. This is the second league from the live stream. So if you're able to catch that live, then you've already seen this. If not, then here's a pretty sweet league for you. So in yesterday's, we tried out the defabricate and the tails end, and I mentioned we never cast either one of them, so I can't really give too much as far as insight on those cards. Um, a lot of times when I'm evaluating a new piece, I kind of decide after a bit, like, oh, this card um, isn't actually doing anything for me. Like, there's not a time I wanted to draw it. There's not a time that I drew it and I wanted or could cast it. So if I'm not casting it and I don't want to cast it and I don't want to find it, why do I have it in the deck? And that's kind of the conclusion I came to with Defabricate and Tails End. I'm sure I'll try them again at some point, but at least at the moment, like, I didn't feel a need to have those cards around. I didn't think they were solving a problem. At least not a problem that, like, actual counter spell or drown in the lock or stubborn denial solved. So I have a hard time kind of including those stifle-ish effects over one of the actual counter spells. But this league, we cut those. In place of the defabricate in the main, I went back to the fourth copy of Drown in the Lock. For the sideboard, the Tails End went back to third copy of Spreading Seas. When I started to sideboard, I had a Stern Scolding and the Tails End. I cut both and replaced the Tails End with the third copy of Spreading Seas. I forgot to put the 15th sideboard slot back in. It's a third Dothy here, but I forgot to put it in for the league, so we ended up running the league with 14 cards. We'll see how much that mattered. Other than that, yeah, y'all have been absolutely fantastic at smashing that subscribe button. So as always, if you enjoy the content, enjoy the commentary, feel free to hit the like button. The subscribe button lets us know that you're enjoying it and you want to see more. Other than that, buckle in. We'll get going with this league, and you can check out some sweet Dimir Death Shadow action while I enjoy my coffee. Hopefully, y'all can't hear me like sip on it. Feel kind of loud. So, match number one. It is a one lander, but we're on the draw. We got a bunch of one mana interaction, so we'll see what happens. Finding a Consider is really nice. Thoughtseize Away Grist is nice. Wasn't really expecting Grist. I was expecting like a Goryo's Vengeance, but we'll take a Grist too. Get down Shadow, hold up Stub in case they do find a Reanimate spell. It's like, obviously, if your opponent's playing Stitcher Supplier and flipping a Traxa into the bin, like, they're playing some sort of Reanimate deck. So we'll just, like, hang out, hit our opponent with this Shadow. If they want to swing back with Stitcher Supplier, we kill them on the crackback. If they do anything else, like top deck as Goryo's Vengeance, we got Stubborn Denial. If they don't attack, we can Fatal Push the Stitcher Supplier and pray to a higher power that they don't have, like, Creeping Chill in the deck. Clearly, if they're scooping to the Fatal Push, then they probably don't have Creeping Chill. But post board against these Reanimate decks, like, Dothy's fantastic, just as some sort of Grave Hate. Blusterstorm usually comes in to help fight over, like, Goryo's Vengeance. Wasn't expecting the Lighted Halfling. Like, I know I saw Grist, and I guess there's a little synergy with, like, what's it called? Atraxa, and maybe they have other legendary Reanimate targets or Reanimate cast targets outside of, like, Grist. which apparently like their whole deck is legendary stuff. But I don't think this is a matchup where uh, hard casting stuff is a very reliable outcome. So they got this red white legendary thing. I don't even remember what it says. I just remember I checked it like 5 times to make sure it didn't say indestructible or like hex proof or something, and I could dismember it. So if they did top deck the land there and cast it, I could dismember it before combat. Otherwise, I'm just gonna hit them in the face with the Murktide and hold up counter spell. Like that seems reasonable. That's yeah, that's Dimir Shadow for you. If your opponent plans on paying or playing a fair game on the stack, you're gonna have a reasonable time. It's round 2. Looks like Mill got these multiple counter spells here, so that's kind of nice. We got a drown to kill the second crab. So they surgical extraction my bowmasters. I don't particularly care for that decision. Um, and I say that because I end up boarding out bowmasters because they just looked really bad here. I gotta pause on this. I gotta pause on this because this is hilarious. My opponent hit me with a Tasha's Hideous Laughter that hit 6 cards. 6 in my Death Shadow deck. And I was so happy because they just hit Shadow Mortality, which has a CMC of 15. And then like Drown. What else they get? Drown, push, something else, not important. But yeah, I thought that was like the greatest moment ever. Just seeing 15 get or 6 cards get flipped with a 15 drop. I was happy. But either way, now that we've got down Murktide, we're just gonna like swing a few times at our opponent's face. Jace's Phantasm gets buffed if I have a bunch of cards in my graveyard. At the moment, I have 0, so no buff for you. 3-turn clock. We've got 3 pieces of counter magic, so I'm feeling fairly confident. Now we just have him dead next turn. Again, triple pieces of counter magic. Jace the Perfected in the graveyard. So opponent sent a message after that game and was like, your deck seems really good against mine. Like, maybe. Sorry. Feel a little bad. We'll take the second crab. They can have a couple mills off this crab. It's whatever. Eventually, we're going to destroy this crab. Fractured Sanity is fine. Kill the crab is fine. They want to Tasha's us here. We saw how that worked out last game. They did hit 13. So that was like pretty solid. Take the Jace's Phantasm because I've got like Flusterstorm counterspell for Tasha's. And I figure I can save the Fatal Push for another crab or Phantasm or something. All right. So Street Wraith to lower our life total is solid. Shadow of Mortality here is solid. Like we can't hold up Counterspell, but it's 1 turn. We've got 23 cards in our yard, and if they don't like deal with the Shadow Mortality, which they can't Fatal Push it, they can't drown it, they don't have double black, so they can't Damnation it, which it looks like they're just mono blue mill, which is kind of cool. Yeah, we're just gonna ride a Shadow of Mortality to victory. Nice. So 2040, as you expect out of Dimir Shadow. Anybody who says otherwise is a liar. Shock Thoughtseize. So this is the new hotness. This is this like blue black Lord of the Rings tribal deck. I say Lord of the Rings tribal because it's like Sauron's Ransom, the One Ring, Bowmaster, Lauren revealed, whole bunch of tech from the new set. Get down Shadow of Mortality because it plays around like Drown in the Lock. They did have Shieldred's Edict, but it's fine. Just double threat, get our clock going. Murktide into a Murktide of their own. Street Wraith here is really good draw because I get to attack in with a Shadow. If they block, I cycle Street Wraith and eat the Murktide. If they don't block, I cycle Street Wraith, make it a 2-turn clock, and I just get to sit on double counterspell. So with 4 cards in their hand, I know they can't have double force, double blue card because they've got the One Ring in hand. So the Drown plus the counterspell, or Drown plus stub gets there, or in this case, just the counterspell plus stub. I guess the Drown wouldn't. They didn't have the cards in the yard. Sideboarding against these One Ring decks, these blue-black One Ring decks. I'm still kind of testing options here and there. I think it's going to end up being like a lot of the removal coming out. I might keep in a couple pieces of spot removal because they are likely to board into like Shieldred and stuff. But I don't think I want to overboard. Because at the end of the day, this is like a spell-ish combo deck. And I kind of want to treat it as such. So they take Sauron's Ransom, Shieldred's Edict. But like, typically Shadow decks have a really good time against spell-based combo. So I'm kind of wanting to lean into that and just say like, hey, you're trying to resolve One Ring to win. I'm going to sit here with like 7 different counters for the One Ring. Like, I doubt you have that many ways of dealing with a Murktide or a Shadow of Mortality. I know because I'm playing blue-black and I don't have a lot of ways of dealing with Murktide or Shadow of Mortality. Speaking of which, here's ya boy. And they scoop to a Flusterstorm. Nice. Had the Bowmaster down to play around Shadow of Mortality. Could just sack the Bowmaster. So this is round number 4. Opponent leads off with a Lava Spike on our face. Thoughtseize sees Whirling Vortex. Searing Blaze. Take the Whirling Vortex because the Searing Blaze is not live until I want it to be live, which is pretty soon, actually. Because if they Searing Blaze my Bowmaster here, then I just get down a Shadow of Mortality, and I'm pretty happy with that. Kind of cool. Shock, ping ourselves, get down Shadow. Opponent suspends a Rift Bolt, which is A-okay. Let's talk about sequence right here. We'll just go till the end of the turn. As you can see, I am not playing out the Death Shadow. But Michael, why are you not playing out the Death Shadow? Because if my opponent goes Rift Bolt on their upkeep, hit me down to 4, then I have to make a decision because if I counterspell anything, I have to pay blue off Underground River, go down to 3, and then I'm dead to any second burn spell. If I don't play out the Shadow and just hold up the counterspell, then I get to fight over anything that says Boros Charm and ignore everything else. So with the not playing Shadow line, my opponent has the Rift Bolt on suspend, 2 cards in hand, drawing a third, and then seeing a fourth card next turn. They have to have uh, 2 more burn spells resolve, or they have to have a Boros Charm resolve through the counter spell. If I play out Shadow, then all they have to have is 2 burn spells, like, period, because I have to counter one of them and it puts me dead to whatever the other one is. But without Shadow, they have to have 2 burn spells resolve past the Rift Bolt to beat the counter spell. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. Like, I'd much rather have my opponent have to have 2 burn spells resolve than just to have 2 burn spells, like, put on the stack, period. Or if they have Boros Charm, then I can just counter the Boros Charm. Like right there, Lava Spike, don't care. But if I had played out the Shadow last turn and I ignore the Lava Spike, then they can just have any other 1 mana burn spell and I'm dead. Because I can't counter it. I can't pay life for the Underground River. But if I wait the turn, play out the Shadow, now I've got counter spell for anything. If they can't double spell, they can't kill me there. Nice. Sideboarding against Burn. Bunch of Wraiths out. Thoughtseize is out. Bring in Turoks. Bring in Flusterstorms. This is obviously, from the Shadow side, the best thing you can see on turn 1. On the draw is your opponent just like suspend Rift Bolt, say go. Because at the end of the day, that Rift Bolt probably doesn't matter too much. Trying to incentivize my opponent to fire off something if they drew it, but at the same time, I know they just have like double Searing Blaze and a Lava Spike. I will aggressively fight over like a Lava Spike because I need to get cards in the yard for Murktide. And if my opponent doesn't play out a land, I can still like flash in Bowmaster, which is pretty sweet. So this is what I was talking about, like aggressively drowning the locking. Just want to get cards in the yard for Murktide. Considers pretty free. Decide to keep the island on top, mostly to just have like a painless way to get down Murktide and hold up Drown. Not a lot of other reasons. The old Searing Blaze for 1 trick, eh? You thought I wouldn't see what you were up to, but I did. Sanctifier on Vec. Realistically, we don't like need to counter that Sanctifier, but I kind of figured, hey, I just have multiple counter spells. Why not just eliminate the risk? But you could also say it's kind of risky to counter the Sanctifier because what if they have double Path to Exile or something? On the play, keep this one because I have a couple lands I've got consider. Obviously, I don't have black mana yet. Now I have black mana. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Bowmaster's Dees. I wish I had one more card in the yard so I could just play like a 5/5 Murktide out here. So I'm assuming I'm up against red-black Scam. Little unfortunate here because one of the ways that you do like lose this matchup is your opponent just seeing a bunch of Terminates. Also, I think I should have played out the Shadow of Mortality there. Like, I know they have the Terminate, so it's a little, what's the word for it? A little like results oriented thinking, but I do believe that the, what's it called? I do believe that the Bowmaster didn't really matter, and the Shadow dies to more than the, uh, what's it called, dies to. It's also pretty free to just like ping the grief there and then double block. Like the 1 point of damage to them really doesn't matter. But I could have gotten the grief off the board and didn't. So I can double block the grief. Unfortunately, it does unlock Castle Lockthwain. Dress down at the end of my turn, just or into their turn to draw a card. Third terminate. Okay. Yeah, like if they saw Furies and Fatal Pushes and stuff, I feel great, but them drawing Terminates, a little more rough. Mulligan decision. Pretty sure that was just like a no-lander. Yeah. No-lander. I could keep a Street Wraith, but that seems pretty sketchy. But this hand on the play isn't bad. Like, I've got black mana, I've got Bowmaster on turn 2, counter spells, whatever the case may be. Now, these are always a little bit of an awkward situation now with Bowmaster because I want to consider and find the land drop. But if I do that and they flash in a Bowmaster, then now I have unnecessary bodies to deal with. Magus of the Moon. Magus of the Please Go to the Graveyard. And not finding the third land here is a little rough. Because ideally, in a non-Bowmaster situation, I would want to consider here to find that third land or try to find the third land. But with our good buddy Orcish Bowmaster, that makes things a little more awkward. Also against Scam, a lot of times in these situations, I'll go Bowmaster the Bowmaster the token instead of Bowmaster the Bowmaster. So if they have an Undying effect, they can't just like get the Bowmaster back and kill my Bowmaster and make the token bigger and bring their Bowmaster back as a potential like 2/2. Yeah, double Bowmaster, Dothy, Fury. Not beating that, especially when we're stumbling. But let's talk about the deck a little bit. Talk about some of the cards people have been suggesting. For example, Sauron's Ransom is one of the big ones that I keep seeing in a lot of the videos. And we do have to understand that, like, this is not the blue-black ring deck. We're not reliably getting to 3, 4, 5 mana like you saw in that last game. To have Sauron's Ransom is a potentially dead card. You could go up to 9 or up to 20 lands and play Ransom and feel like kind of okay. But I have a really tough time seeing Sauron's Ransom like fitting what your game plan is. Like, your plan is get down a threat, protect the threat for like 2 turns, hopefully, and the game just be over. Sauron's Ransom throws a wrench in that because now all of a sudden, instead of playing more counter magic or more interaction, you're playing Sauron's Ransom in the hope that you have interaction in the top four cards and you're able to discern if it's face down that you need to take it and whatnot. And it just adds like a element of randomness to the deck that I don't think really fits the rest of the game plan. Like you really want known information so that when you're countering something, you know it's going to be countered, or when you're drawing, you know what you're looking for. Like I know when I consider I'm looking for a second land, third land, whatever, a threat or a counter spell. When I Sauron's Ransom, I don't really get a choice of, like, obviously I can pick a pile if I'm trying to find something, but I don't like the mind game of it. I don't like the, oh, I hope it's in the face up pile, because if it's not, then I have to take a gamble on the face down pile. Like, no, just tell me, is this card it or not? If yes, go to, like, take that card. If no, go to next card. Um, it also eliminates the ability to like consider into a counter spell, because you can't really Sauron's Ransom into counter magic. Like having 5 mana open is a very, very big ask. But I do think Sauron's Ransom is fantastic in like the blue black ring deck. But you're also running Force of Negation and Subtlety and things that you can do for free. I don't want, if you're concerned about like a really unfair meta, then Force of Negation's fine in this deck. But I don't want Subtlety uh, at the moment, because you can't recoup from the card disadvantage. You don't have a one ring. You don't have uh, a Lorien revealed to draw 5 or whatever the case may be. Draw 3. Like, you don't have those. You're very much a tempo-ish deck at the mercy of making your cards line up correctly. So every element that you throw a wrench, or every element you add in throws a wrench into that plan, because you no longer have known quantities. Uh, I do plan on trying out Lorien Revealed, the Island Cycler from Lord of the Rings. Probably add an extra shock land in there, because if you are playing Lorien Revealed, more often than not, you're going to grab a shock land. And every time you grab a shock land, that means there's one less in your deck for fetches to help enable like Shadow and Shadow Immortality. But it's a pretty cool card, because if you don't have the lands, it finds the land guaranteed. If you do have the lands, then you can just sit on it and eventually become like a 5 mana draw 3, which I get isn't the most exciting thing in the world, but it also works to enable like Murktide Regent. It draws shock lands to help get Shadow of Mortality down, and technically, I guess it lets you cut on a few lands. So we'll kind of see how that plays out. But otherwise, as always, if you're enjoying the commentary, enjoying the content, leave a like, leave a sub. Let us know down below what kind of cards you want to see going forward. Other than that, I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. Stay safe, enjoy some good food and company. I will catch y'all back live later. Adios for now.